The Ron Paul Institute for Peace and Prosperity welcomes you to 5 Minutes, 5 Issues.
Starting in
5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Hello, I am Adam Dick, a Ron Paul Institute Senior Fellow. Let's start.
Issue 1.
In a Tuesday speech at a Washington, D.C. meeting of the National Association of Attorneys General, United States Attorney General Jeff Sessions said, "I'm not sure we're going to be a better, healthier nation if we have marijuana being sold at every corner grocery store." Well, the scenario Sessions mentioned sounds great to me. Legalizing such widespread sales of marijuana would respect freedom more than does the relatively restrictive licensed marijuana sales allowed in early states' legalization efforts. Such widespread sales already work fine for beer in many states now.
Issue 2.
The portion of President Donald Trump's Tuesday speech at the U.S. Capitol building that was dedicated to talking about a U.S. military member who died while taking part in a commando raid in Yemen was standard fare in U.S. war propaganda. That is the assessment of Glenn Greenwald, writing at The Intercept. Greenwald elaborates, stating, "We fixate on the Americans killed, learning their names and life stories and the plight of their spouses and parents, but steadfastly ignore the innocent people the U.S. government kills, whose numbers are always far greater." As examples, Greenwald points to similar comments regarding wounded U.S. troops in speeches at the same venue by Presidents George W. Bush and Barack Obama. Greenwald writes that such propaganda is important to recognize because the propaganda keeps Americans supporting endless war by ensuring that Americans perpetually regard themselves as victims of horrific, savage, tragic violence, but never the perpetrators of it.
Issue 3.
On Tuesday, President Trump signed into law House Joint Resolution 40. As I explained at the Ron Paul Institute website last month, the legislation prohibits the imposing of certain regulations published in December. Those regulations define a process by which the Social Security Administration unilaterally determines individuals have sufficient mental health problems for the U.S. government to restrain them from purchasing and possessing guns. The enactment of House Joint Resolution 40 is a rare example of the President and Congress tearing down one of the U.S. government's many privacy-invading programs that database us to restrict our activities.
Issue 4.
Ron Paul Institute Academic Board member Lawrence Wilkerson has seen the military-industrial complex up close, including during his 31 years in the Army, from which he retired as a colonel. This week, in an interview with Paul Jay at the Real News Network, Wilkerson recounted an example of how military spending comes about. Speaking of his work in the 1970s on developing the Army's Humvee program, Wilkerson described the process that results in huge military spending with widespread congressional support. Wilkerson said, "I was told by the Congress to go back to Fort Benning at the time, and I had a $400 million program, and they said you gotta have a bigger program, gotta have a bigger program. It's gotta be in every state you can get it in." I went back, developed a $9 billion program for a 59,000 vehicle buy, and sold the program. That was in the late 70s. It's mushroomed majorly since then. Now we have helicopters and fighter planes and ships and other things built, a component of which is built in every state.
Issue 5.
A Michigan legislator is drafting legislation to end a state exemption from prosecution for cops who have sex with prostitutes in the course of an investigation. Here is a better idea. Legalize prostitution. And while you're at it, legalize drugs and gambling too. Stop introducing dangers to non-violent activities by making those activities illegal. And tell the cops to focus on crimes with victims. That's a wrap. Transcripts of 5 Minutes, 5 Issues episodes including links to related information, are at the Ron Paul Institute blog.
Five, four, three, two, one.